Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is a webinar that is hosted by the West Lothian African Women's Network. And we are a network, as the name says, and we are a group that is embracing of all African women. And the idea is that we are pulling ourselves together to make sure that we are seen and we help to create opportunities for ourselves to achieve the best potentials we can in the society we are in. And we organize a lot of events towards this goal we've got. And this is one of such events. And the idea for today's webinar really came about by realizing that because most of us, even those of us who have been here for a while, but most of us grew up in our various African countries and we grew up with very different education system. And so understandably, living here in Scotland, we've got a lot of questions to help support our children or even just to really understand how the education system works. So the idea of this webinar came about because of that, and we're hoping that we're able to answer some of the questions we might have regarding the Scottish education system. And just a bit of introduction of myself. My name is Angoli Ibesoku.
Recording in progress.
Oh, and before I go on, I'm just to say that this webinar is recorded. And if anyone, I just make so everyone is aware of that. However, the format of the webinar is I won't speak for more than 30 minutes. My speech will be within 30 minutes. And then at the end of that, I would stop the recording and then also I'll stop the live broadcast and the floor would be open for anyone to ask questions. So again, back to the introduction. So my name is Angoli Igbesuku. I am a secondary school music teacher by profession, and I also teach instrumental music lessons, private instrumental music lessons. And I live in West Lothian with my husband and our 6-year-old daughter who is in primary 2. So all the things I'll be speaking today would be both from my experience as professional wise as well as from the point of being a mom as well. And this is my own view and that I don't represent any organized body in that sense. So just to get started, the Scottish education system. So I'll be covering these following topics. So I'll cover the curriculum and assessments. I'll cover overview of the school system, curricular areas, parental involvement opportunities, pupils with additional support needs, language support, and also tips for smooth transition. So starting with the curriculum and assessments. So Scotland's national curriculum is called Curriculum for Excellence. And this curriculum the aim of this curriculum is to equip the young people in Scotland with skills and different capacities so that they can become successful learners, confident individuals, responsible citizens, and effective contributors in the society. So the broad layout of the curriculum is that it's split into two. So you've got the broad general education, which starts from when the children are about 3 years of age, and it starts with what is called early learning and childcare, and then it runs up to the end of S3, which is the third year in secondary school. And then there is the senior phase, which starts from when the students are in secondary school 4 or S4, and it runs for 3 years, which is S4 to S6. So this curriculum, there are different levels. So the children, when they start from the early learning and childcare, they are to work their way through different levels up until when they get to the senior phase, which is the point when they actually start taking any external exams. So the levels are, so when they start with early level when they are in early learning and childcare, and this early learning and childcare is also what we all know as nursery. So they start with that, and by the end of P1, primary 1, they are expected to have achieved the early level. And then the first level starts from P2 up until the end of P4, and by the end of P4, they are expected to have achieved the first level. And then second levels goes from primary 5 to primary 7, and by the end of primary 7, they are expected to have achieved the second level. And then the third/fourth level goes from S1 up until the end of S3. And by the end of S3, they are expected to have achieved the fourth level. And then, like I said before, they go into the senior phase. And for the first time, they start taking external qualifications. And these external exams are offered by the Scottish Qualification Authority, and they could take National 5, National 4, there is even National 3. And then they could also take higher, they could also take advanced higher from S4 through S6. So there are a couple of things I'd like to note regarding the levels and how they progress along through the years. So the first thing is that the student's progress is tracked and monitored using a combination of continuous assessments. So the popular continuous assessment, you might hear people talk about it here, is AIFL, and this is assessment is for learning. So the idea of this continuous assessment is that the teacher continuously check what the students have learned. It can be in way of asking questions. It can be end of topic quiz, just basically anything that helps the teacher to check if the students understand what they are doing. And the aim of the continuous assessment is to inform future lessons. So they take all this information they've gathered from this as assessments, and they use it to plan the lessons they would teach in the future. And then there is also the summative assessment, and the aim of that is really most times geared towards generating grades and then also the reports that go back to the parents. So then the second point I'd like to make is that some students may exceed the expected levels. So you see how I talked about that by the end of a particular year, they're expected to achieve a certain level. Some students may exceed the expected level, but some other students may not achieve the level that is expected by the end of the year. But however, you will be kept informed. It won't come to you as a surprise because you'll be kept informed through as they progress, and you'll be kept informed by things like parent evenings, and then also you get reports on your child's progress quite frequently. So you will be informed. And then the other point I'd like to make is that the students move up in class at the end of each school year. So back in Nigeria, when I was a student, I don't know if it's changed now, but you don't move up in class unless you've passed every subject you've taken in that class. So for example, in secondary school, you don't move up to secondary school 2. If in secondary school 1 you failed integrated science, for example, you don't move up. But that's not the case in Scotland. So the students move up every year regardless of whether they've achieved the level or not. So this creates a situation where you have students that are on different levels within the same class, or even at different points of the same level, you find them within the same class. However, the teachers are trained to be able to provide for the needs of all these varying abilities in their class. So the teachers are trained to cater to the needs of all the students, and they do this by providing what is called differentiated lessons. So lessons that basically has takes into consideration the different abilities and the different levels the students are working on. So that is the last point I'm making on the levels of the curriculum. So we move on to overview of the school system. So I'm going to look at just a broad look at the school system, look at from the early learning and childcare all the way up to the end of secondary school. So starting with the early learning and childcare, so generally, the children start this when they are 3 years, and it runs for 2 years, so 3 to 5. There might be some reasons why some students would start before 3, let's say when they are 2 years of age, but generally they start from 3 years. And then there is, at the moment, the government provides 1,140 hours of funding. And this funding is available to every child regardless of their immigration status. So it doesn't affect the no recourse to public funds on visas. And then for these 1,140 hours, you can choose to use these hours and send your child to a government-owned early learning and childcare setting, or you can decide to use the hours and apply it for your child to go to a privately owned early learning and childcare setting. And with regards to how your child gets into this early learning and childcare, you will be contacted when the time is coming for when your child is approaching the age when they are to start. You will be contacted via an email, and they will be asked to fill in a form and send it to an email address for your child to be considered. And you'll be also in the form, it will tell you what schools your child should probably be considering, the schools that are within your catchment area, even though you can choose whichever school you want. However, if you've come into the country and there might not be a record that your child is at the age where they are supposed to start this early learning and childcare, all you have to do is to go to your council's website and look for this form, download it, fill it, and then send it to the email address, and your child will be considered for a place. So we're moving on to primary education. So the primary education runs from from the age of 5, and runs from primary 1 to primary 7. So which means that in Scotland we have 7 years of primary school. And then there are different transition programs that help the children move from the early learning and childcare into primary school. So talk of things like them visiting the primary school, and then also even taking lessons with the teachers that are within the primary school, and just being shown around the school to make sure when they come over to the school, they are well settled in. So the next thing I would like to say is that generally pupils are placed in their catchment schools. And this really means that every neighborhood has a school, primary, second, and secondary school as well, that the students who live in that neighborhood are meant to attend. So, and these schools can, all catchment areas or all neighborhood has a denominational and non-denominational catchment school. However, you can choose for your child not to attend the school that is for your neighborhood. You can choose for your child not to attend this. But then you would have to fill a form. You'll find this form on your council's website. You can fill it and choose for your child to go to any school of your choice. And if there is availability in the school, your child may be considered for a place in that school. So moving on to secondary education, I'll split the secondary education into the first 3 years, and then I'll take the S4 to S6 on its own. So again, there are transition programs for the students to move up from primary 7 to S1, and it also involves them coming up to the school, taking lessons with the different teacher, their different subject teachers that will be teaching them when they move up to secondary school. But even at a point when they've also moved up to the secondary school, each class would get assigned a senior student who would take them around and take them to their different classes. Because again, back to my experience whilst I was growing up, the way we had our secondary school was we had classes. So S1, let's say S1A, or we'll have a class, and we all sit in that class, and the teachers came into the class to teach. Whereas in Scotland, the students move about they go to different departments and take lessons in different departments and different teachers' rooms, just like similar to what happens in the university. So this senior student that is assigned to the different classes would take the S1 students to their classes and do this for a couple of days, maybe even week, until the students are able to find their way around the school. So the next point is most children or most students are placed in their cluster secondary school. And the cluster secondary school simply means that every primary school is attached to a secondary school. So because primary schools are smaller than secondary schools, so you find that at least about 3 or even more primary schools, all the students there would be expected to feed into a particular secondary school. So as the students progress from S1 to S3, they would get opportunities to start choosing subjects under different curricular areas, and I'll talk more about that when I go into curricular areas. So secondary education S4 to S6. So the focus at this point is the students studying for their qualification exams, and they can study for national. Generally, the students start from most students would go straight on to take national 5. But there might be reasons why some students would have to take national 3, or even national and take national 4, or even national 3. But generally, most students would go straight on to national 5. And then they can go on to take higher, and then also go on to take advanced higher. Again, I'll talk more a bit about this when we get to curricular area. So the compulsory education ends at the age of 16. So this also coincides with the end of S4. So, and this means that at the end of S4, which is when most of the students turn 16, they are free to leave school. They are no longer obligated to be in school, in formal education in that way. However, before then, it is compulsory for every child to be in school. So you find that some students do leave at the age of 16, and they leave a lot of times to take on jobs. Some of them, if they feel like formal education is not really for them, they might leave to take on jobs, but a lot of them leave to take on apprenticeships. And then a lot of students also leave after higher. And again, this is because a lot of the courses that the students go on to study at the university really needs higher and not maybe national 5. A lot of the courses don't need more than that. And then some students stay on to S6 because they are studying for higher in some subjects, not necessarily because they are studying for advanced higher. But some other students do stay on to study for advanced higher. And this is generally if the students are studying courses that are quite competitive to get in, which means they might need the advanced higher to stand a better chance. So talking from my own point, my field, which is music, a lot of the students who go on to study music related course would generally get advanced higher in music because it takes quite a bit of time to really develop the skills on the instrument, and they can be quite as competitive to get in. So if there are courses that are competitive to get in like that, then the students might stay on for advanced higher. So moving on to curricular areas. So I would take the BGE. So in for BGE, broad general education, the students will study generally eight subjects that fall under 8 curricular areas. And we're talking about math, then languages. So under languages, you have subjects like English, and then modern languages, which would be languages like German, French, and languages like that. And then there is science, there is social subjects, there is expressive arts, and the subjects that would fall under expressive arts would include music, art, drama, PE. And then there is technologies, and the subject that would fall under that would be craft, design, and technology, CDT. And then there is business and computing. And then there is also health and well-being, and under that, the subject that is covered would be food and health technology, which we all know as home economics. And then there is religious and moral education. So just to spend a bit more time on the BGE for especially talking about S3, because at S3, this is the point where the student starts going towards the field they are going to eventually end up in, and then also taking external qualification, external exams. So like I mentioned before, as they move up from S1 through S3, so they get opportunities to choose subjects within the curricular areas which I mentioned. So the schools approach this differently. So some schools at the end of S1, they would let the students start choosing subjects under curricular areas, which means, so for example, if I go back to my field, so say expressive art, they will be asked to choose, perhaps just giving an example, choose between music and art. And what this does is, because they are not taking every single subject at this point, they can spend more time studying the subjects they've chosen. So if they were getting one period of music in S1, if they choose it for S2, then they might get 2 periods. But this is just an example. And then if they're in S3, they might get 3 periods. But generally, being able to choose subjects from the curricular area as opposed to taking every single thing gives them the opportunity to study the subjects they've chosen in depth, because they'll get it more times in a week. So but by the end of S2, all schools, the students have to choose subjects so that they can spend more time. So again, some schools will let their students choose in S1 at the end of S1, but by the end of S2, all schools would have their students choose the subjects they will go on to study in S3. And so especially in this S3, they are really able to personalize their studies. But in choosing the subjects they are going to study, they are expected to make sure they are choosing within the curricular area. They need to maintain the breadth. So they need to make sure they choose subjects across the all the curricular areas. And then the other thing to note is that in making this choice, the students are not just left on their own to just make the choice. They're not just left on their own, they are guided. And there are a lot of things put in place to help them make their choice. So we're talking of things like parent information evening, personal and social education programs. There are career talks and parent evenings. And then there are information booklets, and the booklets would contain the pathways. So they will be able to see if they choose particular subjects, they'll be able to see what sort of path they might be going towards. And then in addition to all of these, there would also be an interview. The students would get a chance to have an interview with a senior member of staff. And this interview is, they are really looking to check what the students are looking to do in the future and see if it's realistic for them, if this is in line with what they've attained. Because remember I said their progress through as they pass through early learning and childcare all the way to where they are at the point I'm talking about, like S3, there has been tracking for the students, especially in the secondary school as well. So this tracking will be taken into consideration as well to see if they are really making the choice that would guide them towards where they can achieve their best potential. So then we talk about the senior phase. So at this point, like I mentioned before, the focus is on external exams. So S4 students will generally study for qualifications in 5 subjects, then they would also study English and math. And these 5 subjects can be any subject, this depending on the field they are looking to go into. And then by the time they are in S5/S6, the number of the subjects they would take would further reduce to about 5. And again, the choice of the subjects they go on to study, a lot of the consideration will be made for what they've attained so far in the subjects they are deciding to choose, to be sure that what they are choosing would match their potential and they can achieve their best and be guided in that way. So that we've come to the end of the overview. So looking at parental involvement opportunities, there are a lot of opportunities for parents to get involved. And I'm talking of things like PTA and parent council. I am a member of my daughter's school's PTA, and we have meetings once in a month. We organize different events. So I have been a member for 2 years because, like I said, she's only in P2. So I've been a member of the PTA for 2 years. And we have organized the school's fair, the Christmas fair. So we organize things like that. And the parents are very hands-on, talk about raising funds for doing different projects in the school, or even just organizing fun activities like the Christmas fair. And we did all the decorations. We were able to come in and really work with the teacher. You get really close working with even the head teacher attends the meeting. So I think these are really good opportunities. And what I find is that being a member of things like that, oh, and the parent council does something similar as well. So being a member of these sort of groups within the school, it brings you closer to really understand what's going on in the school, and also creates, you're able to have a voice to bring about a change. So I'd say please really get involved. They are always looking for parents to join. I know we never have enough people. When we are planning events, we're always looking for people. And even if you can't be, even if you cannot be committed to maybe attend all the meetings, because they really want parents to be involved, you would also get the opportunity to say, just add me onto your WhatsApp group. We've got WhatsApp group. Add me on to your group, and then if there are events going on, you can just volunteer to help with decorating, but just anything is really helpful. And then also you can contact the school office. The schools, their numbers are in the public domain, so you can contact the school office and ask if there are other groups within the school that are looking for volunteers, and if you can get involved. So please do get involved. So pupils requiring additional support. So Scotland operates comprehensive education system, and this means that all students are welcome in any school regardless of their abilities. So, but there are a lot of things that have been placed in school to make this possible, and there are things like additional support needs hubs. So most schools, if not all schools, have these hubs. And basically what the hubs are, they are like designated areas or designated places in the school where students with different needs are supported. So some students might attend these hubs full time, which means they don't go to the normal classes. They just walk out of the hub. Whereas some other students might walk out of the hub part time and then attend some classes. Then you'll find them saying that the student is on part-time timetable. Then there are also pupil support workers, and these are staff within the school who support the students. So they sit with the student in the class it can be one-on-one depending on the need of the student. Sometimes there might be pupil support worker that just support a class. If the students in the class need some help, but not really one-on-one help. So if they need additional help, that someone needs to sit or go around and check what they are doing as the teacher is teaching. But then generally, the pupil support worker also support the students one-on-one, which means they would sit beside the student, and as the teacher is teaching, they are making sure the student is able to follow and is coping with the class work. And in terms of secondary school, this pupil support worker would follow the child around to the different departments and different departments they go to for lessons. But the other thing I would like to say is if you're worried at all for any reason that your child needs some help, which you think you really want to know how they are getting on and you're feeling like there is something that needs to be done to help them better in school, I'd say please get in touch with the school. Even if it's you have some formal medical information which you think if the teachers know about this, it will help support your child better. I'd say get in touch with the school, call the school or maybe email the school, and they would confidentially let your child's teacher know, or the teachers, if your child is in secondary school, they will confidentially let the teachers know, and they will be able to best support your child. And if also you're worried and you just really want to know how exactly is my child getting on beyond the report you get and also beyond the parent evening, you can also contact the school and they would ask the teachers to provide feedback, and then the school might also have a meeting with you to discuss your worries and just to discuss how your child is getting on. So please do contact the school if you have any worries. Then beyond all of this, there are also specialist schools. And the specialist schools are really for if it is deemed that a child is not able to access mainstream school, and following assessments and referrals, the child may actually it may be agreed upon that the best way forward or the best path for the child would be to attend specialist school. But then you can't make this decision on your own. There has to be a referral process and also assessment to arrive at this. So resources for language support. So there are opportunities for pupils to study English as a second language. So if a student has come into the school and they've got limited English language, use of English language in terms of speaking, writing, and communicating or speaking, I've said speaking, writing, and what's the other one? But anyways, if they've come into the school and they've got limited use of English language, there is support for them within the language department, and this is aside the normal study of English. So they are very well supported, and from my experience, the students are able to quickly interact with their fellow students and use the English and in their studies. And then also from my experience as well, because the teachers are aware of the needs of their students. So if a child has English as a second language needs, then the teacher would know about this and they are able to try and find ways to minimize the barriers to the child's learning. So there are support available in school. So tips for smooth transition. The first thing I'll say is to ask questions. You can call the school, you can email the school, you can even visit. So don't feel like you can't call. Like I said before, the numbers are there out there in the public. You can call the school, you can send an email. And if it's something you want to be treated as confidential, you can actually ask for that to be the case. Then also there is the school website, which most schools have is a website. And the website are really good source of information. You would see everything you need to know, and there will be parent section where you can actually really get informed on what's going on with the school and what how the children generally or how the school generally is getting on. And then aside from learning and teaching, school also offer other support. So if you're struggling, I think you should also ask, call the school or email the school and ask to confidentially speak with someone, and they might be able to point you in the direction of help because they're able to offer things like free school meal. And I'm talking of, I know some part of primary school they get free school meal, but even up until secondary school, some student get free school meal, and then also there are things like clothing grant for uniform. But basically, you need to speak to someone. Is there are people who is their job within the school to confidentially answer these questions. So you can call the school and ask to speak with someone, and they will direct you to the appropriate person to speak with. So thank you for listening to me talk, and I have spoken for quite a bit now. So like I said, I'm recording this, so I'm going to stop the recording and then also stop the live broadcasting in a moment. So thank you for anyone who joined us from the YouTube, and so this is the end of the webinar for you. But if you've got any questions, I'm going to download and edit this and then upload it, just my speech. I will upload it and you can put your questions under the comment section. But and I would reply by a text, or if need be, I would make a video to cover the questions. But for those of us who have joined then using the West Lothian African Women's Network link, the floor would be open for you to ask any questions.